I'm Dr. Ashley,
And this is Sherry.
and this is From Her Point of View.
Green flags in a relationship.
Number one, you can be yourself. How important is it to be able to be yourself in a relationship?
I think it's very important. I think it's very, very important to be yourself. I think when you put a mask on, it's for only for so long you can really keep it up. It's like telling a lie. It's like you got to keep up with the lie. So being yourself is really big. Being comfortable with your partner is very huge to me. Being myself, I can't only but be me. So that's pretty much my intake on that. What do you think, Dusty?
Well, what I've learned now that I'm in the 30 and over club, right?
Yay!
So, yeah, whoop, whoop, right? So, sometimes, like, your words carry a lot of weight, more weight than what you may think they do. So what I've learned is to ask the right questions, right? And it'll all make sense when I get to the end. What I stopped doing was asking what you look for in a person, right? When I was in the dating world. And the reason why I did that is because what it did to me was set up this false narrative of what I really wasn't. So a guy be like, I'm looking for a girl who can do this and do that and do this and that. And then I find myself trying to do this and that, but that's really not who I am, right? And so then I realized that this person is falling in love with this false image that I am overtly giving them. And then after I build up this comfortability, I might do something like, okay, excuse me, this is going to be like left, but past gas. And he's like, oh my.
You do that?
But that's the real me. Like, I should be able and be comfortable to do that. So I think, the green is, I should definitely be me. I should be that from the beginning. And so as opposed to asking what you're looking for in a person, I'm just like, this is what you're getting. This is me. So, being my authentic self is so important because then I can gauge how you react and how you are towards me.
Agreed.
So,
ladies, do you feel like a lot of men and women probably fall in the trap of giving a person what they think they want as opposed to who they really are?
Absolutely. And especially if we're talking about like when you're first getting to know a person, like you, and again, I'm just speaking from my point of view. You're, again, obviously you like this person because you took the step as far as in going out on a date with them. So of course you want to impress them at all costs. And, maybe you're eating pretty and, I'm a girl that can eat a full course meal, but here it is. I'm just slightly dipping my food in sauces and everything. And then once I build up that comfortability and I start, really showing who I am, it's just like they're looking at you like, whoa, who is that? But that is really who I am. But, I've been so conscious and nervous that I don't want to necessarily throw you off in the beginning. So I'm like downing down on who I am just to impress someone.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't have much of a comment on that one, but yeah, I agree.
So it is a green flag when you get into a relationship and you know that you are safe and you can be yourself.
Very much so.
Absolutely. And Dr. Ashley and Sherry, I cannot honestly say truthfully if I've ever gone into a situation in the beginning fully being me. And with you guys asking that question, I'm really sitting down. Is like I cannot think of a time that I went out on a date and I was being myself all the way, like being my true authentic self from the beginning.
And like Toya said, when you ask a person, well, what are you looking for? I was really big on trying to be just that person. I focus more on that versus being myself. So when I was myself, the whole ended up being myself. They was like, that's what we wanted all along. I don't know why all of a sudden you became this person you wasn't. And I'm like, well, you said you liked it, so I'm doing what I thought you liked, so that was what, but when that is not on there, then I feel like, okay, I'm good. Like I can just be myself and we're good. It was good.
Right. We're not setting up these
I'm
expectations.
Right. So.
And I would say also that with the green flag, being yourself takes the pressure off trying to be or keep up with the facade of being the person who you thought they wanted originally.
Because that's hard. That's a full-time job. It's almost like a lie, right? When you tell a lie, you got to keep up with it. And the maintenance that goes into keep repeatedly lying is like so much work that you just like, you know what? Forget it. And like, I don't even know who I was. I don't know who I was last week. And, trying to visit that. That's just too much. It's too much.
And I'm a Gemini, so I already go through the motions. Okay, so I don't have time to try to.
See, I'm a Libra, so I need balance.
So trying to. But yeah, that's what I said at the beginning. It's like being yourself is just right on spot. But I it's like a lie. You got to keep up with it. It's like a mask. It's so long you can keep this mask on. It's so long you can. Like, seriously. And I did it for so long. I really did. Just to be good for someone or because I like that person. I wanted them to like me. Crazy.
Perfect. I think we fully covered that one. The next green flag in a relationship. You feel respected.
That's a big one.
So let's elaborate on that portion of it. We want to discuss whether you feeling respected is a green flag, but what does that look like for you? What does respect to you in a relationship look like?
That's so hard to answer right now, right? Because I'm still trying to figure out a lot of that. I am in a long-term relationship, and that's something that I just brought to the table, being able to identify like what is it that I feel like I'm not getting enough of at one point. And it's like, definitely respect. And what that looks like is being listened to, sometimes to feel voiceless, especially with someone who you love, is not a good feeling. And so I remember, and I'm so glad my best friend is on the phone. She used to do this a lot. I'm calling you out. But it used to drive me crazy. When I would talk to her about something that was passionate, she'd be like, "You and your psycho best friend?" And it would drive me crazy, right? Because I felt like it was almost like what I'm saying is going to, on your scale, you're gauging how meaningful that is to you or how much you're going to invest in that if I tell you whether or not I'm on my cycle or not. And although being on my cycle may elevate it still is an underlying issue that I feel. And so I feel like in respects to a boy-girl relationship, that's oftentimes what it could feel like. It's like you're asking me, am I on my cycle, and making me feel like my points are invalid or that I'm voiceless. So I feel like communication is definitely key in what respects look like to me, one of.
Y'all got me thinking tonight, girl. I need some more wine.
Toya brought up a good point with that communication, which will lead us into the next question. But when me and Ashley discussed this prior to setting up the podcast, we had to think about that too. What does respect look like? And for many people, it does vary, because there are certain things in a relationship, whether it's intimately or friendly or family, that you require from certain people to give you to show, that they love you and respect you. And that could be the way that they talk to you, if they talk to you or not. As you said, communication, the way that they treat you, how they treat you in the room when people are watching, and how they treat you behind closed doors.
Right.
All of that matters.
It definitely does. I mean, if you're talking about mannerism, like if I come around you and it's almost like it's a cringe like feeling, you know, between you and I, you know, that's definitely that's leaning more on the red flags. But again, that's still to me going under a category, a subgroup, if you will, of communication, because, you know, body language is a form of communication. So
It's interesting
if
we're
even
talking about respect, but it seems like we're more able to identify being disrespected than what respect actually looks like.
right.
So if I were to ask you, what's disrespect, what does disrespect in your relationship look like? I bet you can enumerate them quite quickly.
Mhm.
But to say, I know that he or she, whatever type of relationship you're in, respects me because he or she does this or that, is a little bit harder.
It is. It is. It is. It is definitely hard to gauge that now. And again, and that's why I wanted to bring the point in the beginning. This is a very interesting topic because you're bringing the point that it's hard to discuss as easily as it is to say or list the flaws in relationships. To bring up the green flags of it, I'm finding more difficult than ever. And especially because I'm still learning myself to a certain extent. Again, I made the point of that I'm turning 30, and it's like a lot of things is coming full circle for me, as far as a mindset. So even knowing what respect is for myself. So if I don't even know what that is, it's kind of hard. Like, that's unfair for me to feel like my partner would be able to identify what it is that I'm seeking for him to give me in terms of respect, because what did I display to you if I didn't even respect myself to a certain extent? But like, I think, as again, that's still going back to a key of communication. I mean, listening to me nonetheless is definitely a form of respect for me. I'm trying to think of another one.
I mean, it also threads back to that first green flag of building a space where you can be yourself. That's a demonstration of respect. I respect you because I'm making it safe for you to be exactly who you are, and exactly who you are is just what I want.
Right. I must say, I guess I'm stuck because you're right. We are quick to point out what disrespect versus look like versus what it is. For whatever reason in my mind, what respect looks like, I always believe the way a man treats his mother, how he's treated his woman.
Oh, that's a good one, Bestie.
So if I see the love and the respect that he had for his woman, for his mother, then I believe for a doubt in my mind he's going to be great to his woman. So that's what respect looks like to me.
Another thing that I feel like respect for me is allowing me to grow.
That's
allowing me to grow. Yep. Because I am coming into my own, and that can be frustrating to anyone, because what I was maybe a few months ago is not what I am now. And for somebody, you know, which people can be like chameleons, you know, you're adapting to your environment. And then if you find yourself like, okay, I think I'm adapted to this environment, and then a person changes just like that, that can throw anybody off. And I feel like that's where I was in the period, and still am in a period of my life. So, you know, what that looks like to me is him allowing me to grow. Would be another example.
Allow me to be human. Respect me when I make mistakes. Respect me when I'm not perfect, regardless of how strong I may come off. Respect when the strongest person in the room becomes weak. Respect that. A lot of times I feel like, and Toya and I just talked about that earlier, how guys at times can put us on this pedestal and we seem to fail or make one stupid mistake, and they harbor that for a long time. So for me, it's allow me to be able to be human, just like I allow you to be human. You know, respect me for, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I may say things crazy. I may do things that make you look like, why did you do that? Or, you know, but respect that.
So our third green flag, you can communicate openly. When you see that you're in a relationship where you can, 1, be yourself, 2, you feel respected, and 3, you can communicate openly.
I can see how they're all three going hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely can, because when it's time to have difficult conversations, are you able to respect me enough throughout this conversation without bashing me and I not bash you? Or am I able to be myself and explain how I really feel without feeling crazy about it? Yes, that I see how that can go hand in hand. Communication is a big deal. And I learned that towards the end of my relationship. Communication was big. He was my first of everything. So I felt like if you're the only person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life, then you need to know what you're doing in every area or how I feel. We need to be able to talk about difficult things, not just what I feel about you, but how you feel about me too. Or if there's something that I don't like, that you don't like that I'm doing, say it. We had really difficult conversations. And after that, I felt good about it because we didn't disrespect each other. We were open with each other, and it did something to our relationship at one point. It really did. So communication is really a big deal, and I like how it went hand in hand like that. I did, because you need those two key factors for it to balance like that. Because if I'm not myself, then it's no purpose having this conversation. If I'm not being respected, we definitely don't need this conversation, because you're not going to just talk to me in kind of way or say anything. So at this point, let's just reel it in, you know. So.
Now, Ashley and Shari, can y'all ask the question again? And what are you asking, like the importance of that to me as far as in a...
What we're doing is just listing out the green flags in a relationship. So when you see these things, that's a green flag instead of a red flag. So when you see that you're in a relationship where you can communicate openly, that's a green flag. So talk about how safe you feel, or, you know, how that feels to be able to say what you need to say without fear.
So I'm a little conflicted with answering that, right? Because that is very important, to be with someone where I feel like I can openly express myself, and not only express it and feel like I'm accomplishing being heard, you know, because anybody can express how they feel, but is the information being received? And I think that's very important, because I mean, you could be a person that's very open, like I can listen to you all day, but are you receiving it? So I think they have to go hand in hand. Doesn't necessarily receiving it means that it's going to go the way that I want it to go, but just to know that you understand where I stand with it, and that you heard me and you listened to me. So that's important. Like those two have to go hand in hand. But what I also realized, it just more so for myself, like no person has that power over whether or not I'm going to express myself or not. Like I have that power. And I know moving forward, like no one is going to make me feel voiceless. So it's a perk to be with somebody. Like I know that's a must for me in a relationship. Like I have to be with someone where as though I can. It's not so much that they are going to allow me, but are they going to receive it? I think that's my thing. Because I know whoever I'm going to be with, I'm going to express it at this point in in my life. I know I had problems with being able to articulate a lot of the things that I wanted to say, and with that brought frustration because I wasn't able to get out what I truly wanted to say, but not because that platform wasn't there for me to do it. I just didn't know how to articulate it effectively for my significant other. So like I was kind of like the fork in the road, so to speak, with that. But needless to say, like, yeah, being able to have that open floor with whoever I'm with and knowing that they're receiving what I'm saying.
So that ties back into being able to be yourself. When you are in a relationship with someone and you know that you can be your authentic self, you feel like you can also communicate honestly with them, with whatever the case may be. And so that allows for a safe space in a relationship.
Totally agree.
Number 4, they support your growth. When you see that, I mean, you mentioned that earlier, Toya, if, you know, when talking about being yourself, but also allowing me to grow. But then also with this number 4 is supporting that growth. What does support look like to you?
Support is going through the motions that come along with it, right? Because you can be there physically, but you can be checked out mentally. You know what I'm saying? And so it's being connected in both forms, being there physically, but also being connected with me mentally. Because like I said, even going back to the point, like, you know, it's kind of like you being a chameleon, you're adapting to your environment, but change abruptly can be hard for anyone. So it's like when you're getting adjusted to one way and then someone who's trying to find themselves or coming into or whatever the case may be, just abruptly change that on you. Like that can be hard for anyone, and especially if you put on the frequency of, you know, how often it's happening, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to, okay, I can adjust if it happened once or twice, but if it's happening so frequently, whereas though you can't really connect right away, you know, it can really cause you to emotionally just check out. So it's just, you know, supporting my growth both physically and mentally, you know, no matter what, you know, knowing that you're going to have my back. Like we can be somewhere else and you pissed at me, you know, but not letting nobody on the outside know, you know, that you ain't going to have my back. I mean, you may give me the full-blown frustration when we walk into that house soon as the doors hit the lock, you know, I can't believe, but you had my back, you know, and you were there, and to know that you have belief in me that when it's all said and done, that I am going to deliver. And that's the thing, that you have no doubt that I'm going to get to that point, you know, like really having belief that I can be there eventually or get there eventually.
She covered it.
Because I feel like we don't discuss mental part a lot. We don't really discuss that. And you're right. You know, you can support a person all day long, like I got your back, yeah. But when it's like really like the real deal, and you really mentally frustrated with me, like you didn't even get time to like really process. Like that's a big deal. And so like she like really covered every aspect of like, I want to feel that security knowing you believe in every step that I've done. That's why I said respect me being human. Because when I do make a mistake in the process of things, I want to know, are you going to be able to mentally handle when I mess up and move on to something else? Because I bet you one thing about me, one thing for sure, two things for certain. If I got a plan A, that fall, you better believe I got a plan B, C, and D, and E. And we're going to make sure, you know, one of them plans is going to work. And I need to know you're going to be able to handle that. Can you handle that? So that's how I feel with that.
All right. Green flag number 5. They apologize and learn from their mistakes.
Ooh. Okay.
So that's a good one, right? So when you're thinking about the response and they apologize and learn from their mistakes, that's a 2-part thing that we discuss. A person can apologize, but when the action doesn't change, the behavior remains the same. What are you saying I'm sorry for? So in relationships, a lot of people can kind of understand where that comes from, because you hear the, oh, baby, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But then you out doing whatever the hell you want to do right after you just said you wasn't going to do it. So that's a two-part thing. And so when you get that in a relationship, it is a green flag. It's really what you want. You don't want them to just apologize, but you want them to actually change the behavior, right?
Correct.
I'm struggling hard with this. And I'm
Okay.
struggling hard with that because I don't know what it feels like to have that. I'm such an action person now that you can tell me you're sorry all day long. If you don't have actions behind that, then it doesn't mean nothing to me at all. So I can't quite speak on it per se, because like I said, I don't quite know, because I dealt with an individual where they told me all that I wanted to hear. They'll tell you what you want to hear, but when it was time to present it, they didn't. Or when they finally did, it was too late. So
can we go back to the beginning when you talked about being your authentic self? 1, 2, being able to communicate. Because when you look at it, these things fall into a process when you're in a relationship. So if you know going into a relationship, you can, 1, be yourself. 2, you can communicate. In the beginning, are you revealing that information to your spouse by saying, this is the kind of person that I am? These are the things that I require from you in a relationship, and that being putting action behind your words? Or do you just kind of just wait, and then when that, when you cross that bridge, then you bring it up and say, hey, moving forward, this is what I need from you? Or do you set the tone from the beginning?
So I was 16 when we started out. So we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, the same person that I was at 16, I wasn't at 24. So the things I required you from the beginning, it was about puppy love. It was all about making it work, because I just had to have a boyfriend. Just had to have one. Okay. Then I realized at 24, okay, I don't like that. I need more. We got to talk about this. Something ain't right here. Something's not meshing. And so to answer that, I never at the end really got it fully. I mean, he wanted to, you could definitely tell he wanted to change, but he had so much going on with him, he could not change for me at that moment or at that time. So that's why I say I'm struggling with this question, because I never really got that before.
So in the present, no, that makes sense. So in the present, we learn from our experiences, right? Mm-hmm. You got with this guy when you were young. Who you were at 16, you now are at 24. Deciding to get into another relationship at this age, knowing what you know now, do you set the tone early and say, hey, this is what I need moving forward?
Mm-hmm. So you said it from the beginning. For me, I have to set it from the beginning because of the red flags. For the beginning, I need to set the tone. We need to discuss this offhand. Everything needs to go flatline. And then from there, I can make that decision whether I want to stay, or you make that decision whether this is going to work for you or not as well. So that's pretty much my intake. I feel like moving forward at 30, because I'm not the same woman I was at 30 now. I'm not 24 no more, so I'm 30. So some things that I tolerated then I'm not going to do now. So setting the tone from the beginning is very big, because like all of the things that's falling in the line, this is what you're going to get. I expect you to respect what you're going to get, because you now said you good with this. This is me. Okay, you're respecting this. We can talk about this. And now I'm feeling like, okay, so now this is up to you whether you want to stay or not. I'm good with it if you good with
it. Okay, I want to make sure I have this. They apologize and learn from their mistakes. It is definitely important. And with that is accountability, because the green flag for that is how important for me is accountability. And I don't think I I was more on the giving end of apologizing and not learning from my mistakes more than I was the one that was learning from my mistakes and also apologizing. I went into a relationship with someone who set the tone from the beginning and also was sure of themselves from the beginning. I was the one that was kind of, juggling, coming into my own, knowing certain parts that was about myself, but other parts that I didn't know about myself. I was the one that was, to a certain extent, all over the place. Not saying that everything that I did, everything I said was wrong or wasn't right, or wasn't me, but I was the one coming into myself. So I find myself even now outside of boy-girl stuff, apologizing a lot for my action and how I was as a person, even to my best friend lately, as far as in the way or what my thought process was and how I view things and thinking I was so sure on things and I really was completely clueless. I think that we have to put up their accountability, because I think that if you are accountable for your actions, then you can change. I definitely didn't take a lot of accountability in a lot of the things that I did. And so therefore I found myself apologizing a lot on things, but still repeating, being repetitive in the things that I did, because it's easy to say I'm sorry, but putting the work in to change, that's the hard part. And it's only hard because I didn't equate accountability being on, meaning the same thing. So that's definitely a green flag, is knowing from the start that I'm with someone who takes accountability for their action, and myself included. I'm not exempt. So.
And being able to apologize requires humility. You have to be able to humble yourself and say wrong. You have to swallow your pride sometimes, which is very hard to do in a relationship.
Extremely.
And say, I was wrong. I posted on our Instagram page that when you repeat a mistake, it is not a mistake anymore. It is a decision. So if you do something and you apologize, but then you do it again, it's no longer a mistake. You have chosen that.
Absolutely. And I find myself doing that. You know what I'm saying? But then I'll say, my intentions was great though. I had good intentions. So I know that when I did it, I didn't mean to do it, but then it is a different scenario. And although I have did it the same exact way that I did it prior to, I'm still showing signs that I'm capable of doing it again and again and again. So then that leaves rooms to question that. And then I'm upset because it's like, well, I apologize. Why are you still mad about it? Because it's just like, at that point, my apology had no substance. It has no substance now. Because it's just like, I heard it all before. Okay, you're gonna apologize, and now I'm like this. I'm bracing for you to go right back and do what you did before. So I'll rather brace myself, because I know that you're more capable of going back and doing what you already apologized for again, as opposed to me feeling like this time is different. It's different, and that's a hard pill to swallow, especially when you are now a changed individual. And it's kind of like, well, this time is different. This time is different. And so you have to be conscious of when you put that out there, like, okay, I'm changed now, different now, because, it's hard to build up that trust again when you are constantly subjecting someone to abusive behavior. People think that just abuse means physically putting your hands on somebody, but verbally and mentally can be very abusive. If I keep apologizing for hurting you constantly, feeling wise, it's like, that's a form of abuse, and I can't be mad that you have your guard up, because I repeatedly have not been learning from my mistakes.
Yeah.
I would add to that and say, because you actually brought up really good, valid points in accountability. So in relationships, we should all be required to be accountable for our actions, for our thoughts, all of that. That also goes back to change behavior, right? So with accountability should come change behavior. But I also feel, and you can disagree, let me know, do you feel like you should be giving your partner what you want to receive? As an example, for them to know, this is what I need from you. So, and I'll go back to say, maybe you talk kind, right? You're just a really sweet, kind person. And so when you communicate with your partner, you communicate with them with white gloves on, very kindly, because you want them to respond to you in a kind way. So you set the tone for what it is that you want them to give you by giving them what it is that you want. Do you feel like that's something that you should be doing or you could be doing to make things better? Because sometimes you can tell a person, hey, I don't want you to do this. Hey, I don't want you to do that, right?
Still do it.
Yeah. But if you show them exactly what it is that you're seeking, maybe they will mimic the behavior.
Something to think about.
It really is, only because I guess I'm thinking about my friends' situations. I think it also, if I display what I like, it could all be how I'm displaying how I thought was okay because the way I was brought up. So if the individual wasn't brought up the same way that I was, and I'm telling them I don't like this, I don't want you to do that, that can kind of be a conflict because they may not know how to change or do what I'm asking, if that makes sense.
It does. But I also feel like there's universal law, right? For the most part, nobody wants to be talked down to, even if they are used to being talked down to.
That goes back to respect.
It goes back to respect. People will say, well, it's okay because that's what I'm used to, but it's truly not okay for anybody to disrespect you. So whether you decide to be okay with that or not is on you. But ultimately, if you had a choice to decide how you want a person to treat you, I feel like sometimes you have to give them that example and say or do certain things. And I just use the way that you communicate. If I'm communicating, like when me and my dude talk, I'll say, I'm not coming for you. This is going to be a hard conversation. I would prefer if we don't yell and cuss, which we already know cussing is out, because once the F word comes out, I don't care how mad you are, the conversation is over. But when you set those guidelines, and I'm talking to you very calmly, I'll get that in return. And then when I don't, then the conversation just kind of ceases, because whether you want to or not, this is not going to work between us. And so that's why I say giving them the example.
I agree. Yeah, I you should be able to do so. I guess I was, like I said, I was just thinking more so like my friends. Sorry, you guys, because that was you really had to think on this one. You did.
No, fine. I'm just using that as an example. I feel like sometimes you can tell a person what you want and what you don't want, but if you can give them
what I want them
to receive, then maybe they can be more open to receiving that, because maybe they don't know what that looks like
or feel like.
What does catering look like? If I'm washing your clothes and folding your clothes and putting them away, every now and again, you can do that. That would be great. But if you show them, and I guess we would have to get a man's perspective in regards to that. Would you like your woman to give you an example of what it is that they want in order for you to give them what they want? Because sometimes just saying it's not enough.
Right.
But I think sometimes like that's being with someone, my significant other aunt brought this perspective to him and he delivered it to me, and I never looked at it at that point. But being equally yoked with someone, because that's very important, because if you are equally yoked with someone, to me, in my viewpoint, and everyone's can be different, it's like you're pouring into areas where, to me, that would stimulate your significant other, where though they would want to do certain things, not just because I told you that I want you to do this. Now, some things may be, foreign to another person if they were not groomed in that area. Like, somebody may not just be an affectionate person because they just wasn't groomed in that area or wasn't surrounded by that. But if I stimulate you or pour into you in areas where as though it's warranted, then you would, to me, want to try to engage more in that area of your significant other, of wants, not necessarily needs, but what she would want of you to do. So if I'm a person that likes to get hugs, if I am satisfying him and I don't mean this sexually, but it just in areas where as though that's what he's asking for, then we probably wouldn't have to have a conversation like, oh, James, I wish you would give me more hugs. Like, he would gauge that on a lot of, you know what I'm saying, of seeing that with me, paying attention to me or doing things. Now, again, that's not across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Put that out there. It's not across the board, but I think, being equally yoked with an individual, sometimes you wouldn't have to necessarily have a lot of those conversations. Not saying that still doesn't mean that there are areas where you would still ask more of them, even with being equally yoked. But yeah.
I think that we have gone far away from our question or our flag. This is very good information. But I want to bring us back.
We move from the apologizing,
because that's where we were. We're with the apologizing and learning from our mistakes. But all this information is valuable and will be used. Let's go on to green.
But is that where you were going with it, Sherry? Like, I think I was trying to figure out where Sherry was going with it.
Because I said that with the conversation, change behavior, acknowledgement. You said accountability is important, right? So you are holding not only your partner accountable for not just apologizing, but you're holding them accountable. With that accountability comes change behavior. In changing the behavior, do you use yourself as an example to them to show them what it is that you want from them? That's where I was going.
That makes sense. That brings it back.
Okay. Yeah, because I was a little confused in the beginning at first. I thought that's where you were going with it, but that's my mistake if that's where you
you're fine. Because it's like a tree, right? Many branches. A lot of things can be pulled off of from the tree. And so it can go in different realms. But for me, I just felt like when you say accountability, change behavior, apologizing, if you show your spouse the example of what that looks like, maybe they will reciprocate that back to you.
Yeah, and yes, but then also I feel like it's really up to the individual. It's really up to them. Like, I can show you this. Like, if I'm showing you accountability, it's really because I have to practice what I preach. I can't sit up there and say that you need to be accountable, and I'm not doing it myself. I would hope that it would eventually become contagious, you know what I'm saying? Whereas those who will catch it and, be able to start working on it, or at least put the effort into that. But it's really up to that individual. It really is them. Like, you have to want that for yourself. But I also have to do my part in displaying that too, because if I'm a person that's one day I'm practicing what I preach, and then another day I'm not consistent. So you have to also be accountable, and you have to be consistent as well. Because if you're not, it's really giving a mixed message. So yeah, you definitely need to display what it is that you want your significant other, and that should be that should be across the board, period. Not because, this one day I feel like, I want this respect from you, and then the next day I'm like, I don't care if I get it from you or not. Like, no, I have to want that respect from you every single day, not just when I'm okay the day I want it and the next day, because how can you learn from that?
Consistency.
You have to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Green flag number 6. They respect boundaries.
Oh, that's important. Oh, that's important. You definitely got to respect.
So first, in order to respect the boundaries, you have to clearly define the boundaries.
Ooh.
So that's setting the tone from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And they all keep threading back together.
You do.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. How it's falling in line like this. I love it.
Mhm. So when you are in a relationship and you see that that person, after you've communicated and defined the boundaries, are able to respect those boundaries, that is a green flag. That is good.
That's excellent. That is excellent. So I'm assuming that this question is again if one knows what their boundaries are. So I'll answer it from that perspective.
Okay.
I'll give an example from yesterday. My significant other, and I won't go into specific details, brought something or stated, plans that were going to go into effect, and so those plans didn't really sit with me well. And I needed time to process it before acting off an impulse. Like I had to process it in my mind, a plethora of things, whether or not, my thoughts were, I were overreacting, if what I felt was valid or whatever the case may be. And when he asked me, hey, what's that face, what's that facial, what's that facial expression or whatnot, I knew what that was. I knew what I was doing, but I put it out there, I need time to process it. And he asked questions that tried to get me to engage in it. And I was just like, hey, I asked if you could give me time to process this. And right now, I don't feel like you're giving me the time. And he fell back. And that was understanding to me my boundaries. Like, at this particular point, I don't want to cross that right now. Or also, if I use the word trigger, there's trigger words that I have, and sometimes I don't even know they're trigger words until it's said. Some words can be an automatic trigger word, like bitch or ho, stuff like that, or yo, calling me yo like I'm one of your homeboys. Like those are ones I can tell you off the gate. Like, don't call me that. Like, it's just what's not going to happen. But you can say, oh, you're being childish, and that can instantly be a trigger word. And him realizing that, what, that hurt my feelings, or that, you cross, or that's a boundary that you're crossing, and realizing my body language, or, the words that I'm saying is hurt, and not being immature and like childish, like, keep repeatedly saying it when you're knowing that you're crossing a boundary for me. So I think that is very important, and it goes back to communication, because if your significant other is not just verbally what she says, but her body language and how she changed, really understanding her or him. So very important to know boundaries.
Gotta agree. I agree. Like I said, it's like it go hand in hand with all of the questions you guys are asking. Like, the respect has to be there so that, we can set the tone from the beginning and communicate. You have to communicate that from the beginning. It has to be communicated, what the boundaries are or what it is that you want. I agree wholeheartedly.
So, green flag number 7, they compromise.
That's a big one too.
That's a big one. How important is compromise?
Compromise
We're talking about, bringing 2 different perspectives into things. You may not do things the way he does things. He may think that the way you're doing things is really dumb. But how do you compromise? And when you find that, it's a green flag.
Yeah.
You done put a lemon in this. You did a lemon. When you bite into a lemon, Ashley, and you're like, girl, you done touched them.
My bottle is empty. I gotta get it done. But beforehand,
Compromise.
y'all got me thinking. Compromise is a big deal. Compromise for me is like everything y'all saying is like hand in hand. One of the things that I know what compromising means comes with sacrifice. We have to be willing to sacrifice. So, yeah, I gotta get another bottle. But
Okay, so let me
Do you need me to pause anything or anything?
We good.
I was gonna say, let me interject, and then we can go back to Kiera, her thought. But we talked about
You want this, right? You want me to keep this? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Go
want
ahead.
you to keep this.
All right.
So we talked about the difference between compromise and sacrifice and what that looks like in a relationship. And I think that people get the two misconstrued, because with a compromise, whatever that may be, you feel good about it. You may not want to do it, but for the betterment of the relationship, you can say okay to this thing and still go to sleep at night. When you are put into a position where you need to sacrifice something, yeah, you may not want to do it, but once you act upon whatever that request is, it doesn't sit well with you. So that's the difference. You want to be able to receive compromise from your partner. And when giving it, know that it's a compromise. But when you feel like it's more of a sacrifice, that's when it kind of goes downhill from there. Because you shouldn't be allowing yourself to be in a position or respond in a certain way where you're not going to feel good about it later. You feel good about the compromise. You know that what you're saying okay to is good for both of y'all. But when you're sacrificing, not so much.
But sacrificing don't have to necessarily be a bad word, though. Because, in some form of fashion, when you're compromising, like you said, no, I may not necessarily want to, but I'm going to adjust to it. That is, to me, somewhat of a sacrifice. I had to sacrifice of, I don't really want to do it, but it's not that bad. It's something I'm going to live with, because I'm not going to compromise with you something that I can't go to sleep on, that evidently we're not good with it. I'm going to eventually figure out what it is that I need to maneuver for it to work. So I feel like when you say sacrifice doesn't necessarily have to be such a negative thing, like, oh my God, I have to, it doesn't have to be that bad, when in some way, in my opinion, you are somewhat making a sacrifice by compromising with the individual. So, like she said at the beginning about, well, what you may have done was stupid or whatever. If that's just who I am, okay, I'm going to try not to do it as much. That's just who I am. But now I have the sacrifice of not doing it as much. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty much how I'm saying. Like, I don't necessarily think that sacrifice should be used in a bad lighting, so to speak. Not that saying that you are saying it, but I don't feel like it should be used in a bad lighting. Like, in some way, I feel like we do make sacrifices when we're doing a compromise. Someone, in some instance, someone is sacrificing something to make this work.
So what I've learned to do is ask, what's your definition of compromise? That's important, because what my understanding of compromise, or what my definition may be of compromise, may not be what my significant other may view or may feel that compromise is. So what I'm learning to do is ask, how do you view compromise, or what's your definition? Because of course we got the literal Webster definition of what compromise is, but how somebody interpret it, or it's different, right? So what's your interpretation of compromise?
Setting the tone for what that is for yourself and your partner is very important. So in your relationships, do you find, Toya, that when you have that conversation, it's easier to make decisions on things together because you know what the difference is?
Well, it's not necessarily, no, it's not easy. It's not easy. And what I learned, and the reason why now I do ask the question as to what your definition of compromise is, because, and I got that from definitely dealing with famous. Like, I got to say, all of this, the content that I'm giving you is definitely dealing with his butt, because we would get into so many disagreements and heated debate, because I'm thinking that your view of compromise is my view of compromise, So I can't figure out why it is that we're walking away from this table so angry with one another if we're using the term compromise. Because my compromise means that we both walking away from the table, not saying that we are 100% happy, but we're satisfied with the results. And that's how I view compromise, finding a means to a solution that works for both parties. He thought compromise means one lose and one wins. So I couldn't figure out why we would get so caught up in you're using the word compromise. To me, that wasn't compromise. And then to him, what I was doing wasn't compromise. So first asking the person, understanding what is compromise for you. And now that I understand, or we both are on the same page, it is easier now. Not necessarily meaning that it's, this false connotation, at least for us, that we're still walking away like this, but at least we're walking away like, you know what, I can go to sleep and not feel like I want to choke you tonight. And same thing
for
with
me,
you.
yeah, because going to sleep feeling like you want to choke them out is because you sacrifice something that does not sit well with you. And like Kiara said, sacrifice doesn't have to be a bad thing, and it doesn't have to be, but I just feel like it doesn't coincide with compromise. Compromise is you are doing the thing for the betterment of the relationship, but you can still sleep at night. When you're sacrificing yourself, your values, your morals, and so on and so forth, those things, you cannot sleep at night. The thing that you decide to say yes to, but keeps you up at night, that's the sacrifice.
And with compromise, both sides have to make concessions.
Exactly.
And that's where I think when you were pulling out sacrifice is where one person, or you give up something for something else. But it can be one-sided, but with compromise, the concessions have to be made on both sides so that you understand, maybe I'm giving up something, but you're gaining something, but you're also meeting me in the middle. There's a balancing act there.
There's a balance. It's definitely a balance.
Definitely.
You have to find balance, and that's what compromise is, finding a balance. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to walk out. It may be an 80-20 thing, whereas though my significant other may feel like, he's getting 80% out of the deal, and I feel like I'm getting 20. But what I sacrificed, my 80 that was sacrificed, is not going to cause me to lose sleep, or doesn't feel like I'm losing me in the end. You know what I'm saying? That feels like this is going to be a repetitive thing where, I'm willing to sacrifice that for the betterment of us.
And that's why I said sacrifice wasn't necessarily a bad word, because there are going to be times where it's 80-20. And you're going to have to feel okay with giving up that 80 so that it would work, or would work for the other individual. So that's
peace
why
of mind is important. So which one is going to give me peace of mind? Me trying to argue my 80, or me just taking that 80 loss and getting that 20%, or vice versa? Like, which one? Which one is going to lead me?
Whatever it is should and benefit both parties. And who's to say we're going to be compromising for a long time? So that 80-20 could be temporary. I'm willing to sacrifice, make a compromise for a temporary situation, or depending on whatever we're compromising. I'm willing to do so, because as a partner, you do give and take. It is a give and take, so to speak, so you would have to give up something to make something work.
I'll take it.
We good with that one? No, right. And our last green flag, you feel safe and secure.
All that. I love you guys.
What does that look like?
All of those things just all come together at the end.
Oh, I love you guys. I'm going back to question 1.
Okay.
Being yourself. Once I'm myself, then I'm safe. If I can't be myself, then you're not going to get number 2. You're not going to get number 3. You're not going to get anything else after that if I can't be myself. So security for me is right off the rip, being myself, like off the top. So that's pretty much my instinct. Being safe is a big deal. Big deal. That's a comfort. That's what makes everything go. So I like that. I like how y'all put that in there like that.
So y'all said safe, and what was the other
Safe
one?
and secure.
Insecure. Insecure.
And
So
safety is several different things.
it
Yes,
is. It is. Safety doesn't necessarily mean, having a gun in the house or somebody break in. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't necessarily means that. But I definitely piggyback off of what Kiara said. Safety is knowing that with being in myself, you have my back. With being who I am, you have my back. Security to me is knowing that we are both growing and that you're not trying to stop or stump my growth. Safe and secure to me is loving me unconditionally, flaws and all. Safe and secure for me is also, it can go in financial, like knowing that you're doing all that you can to secure it down for me and my family, to know that if you were to close your eyes today or tomorrow, you made sure you did all that you could to make sure that we gonna still eat after you leave. Safe and secure is investing in our love, bad and good. Like, so I can give you a list of things of what safe and secure means to me,
Safe and security is like longevity. How
longevity.
long,
The foundation.
the foundation of it. Knowing that I am safe and secure, and I know that you got me and I got you. That right there is just within itself. I love it.
But when you talked about what that looks like, Toya, with the security, the financial aspect of it, can go back to thinking about like knowing that if your spouse is out in the world, he ain't talking bad about you. He's going to respect you whether you're in his presence or not. So you can be secure in knowing that, when he leaves the house, things are still right.
That's security. That's security. It's secure.
Trusting that he's going to make the right decision, having no doubt. You know what I'm saying? Having no doubt that at the end of the day, whatever decision that you're going to make, I know you're making it in what you perceive to be in the best interest of me and your family. Your family and I. And even, if it goes to something as far as in how you talk about me, when you leave and you talking to your homeboys, how am I being presented to them? What are you saying about me? And it's one thing when you got to vent, that's it. But like, what are you referencing to me? What are you categorizing me as? You know what I'm saying? Because what you're displaying to them, may be totally different than what you're displaying to me. What respect do you have for me? I mean, it's a plethora of things, but yeah, how are you securing our foundation?
And safety and security to me also mean trust.
Big one.
I think that's another thing here that we didn't quite talk about. And so, like you said, I have to trust that when you go outside, you're going to respect me enough to not do X, Y, and Z. You're going to have my back, X, Y, so we can be a full run of people, and you treat me with just as such. I have to trust that. Trust is major for me as well, with feeling the safety and security. Because I have to trust that you're going to do what, as my partner, what you're supposed to do. I have to trust that. So that's pretty much my intake on that one.
I'm feeling good about this. We've well covered the green flags in the relationship. Just to recap, I'm going to run them down. 1, you can be yourself. 2, you feel respected. 3, you communicate openly. 4, they support your growth. 5, they apologize and learn from their mistakes. 6, they respect boundaries. 7, they compromise. And 8, you feel safe and secure.
All those things sound like a successful relationship to me.
Yeah, I'm about to say what I say.
All right.
You've been listening to From Her Point of View, the show curated specifically for women by women, covering a wide range of topics. Though this is from her point of view, we want your point of view too. Become a part of the show. Questions, comments, and feedback are welcome through Instagram and Facebook, where we post regularly. Email us at fromherpointofviewllc@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail at 443-507-8032. Tune in weekly, and please share with your family and friends, as we can be found on your favorite platforms: Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Thank you for listening to From Her Point of View.